All right, so today we're going to be diving into something pretty extraordinary.
Oh, yeah.
We've got research and articles and all sorts of stuff about this near-death experience.
Yeah, and I think this one is going to be a wild ride for a listener.
I think so too.
Yeah,
So, and we've got a lot of sources to kind of go through,
we do.
and I'm really looking forward to kind of dissecting all this stuff about Susan Grau's near-death experience.
One of the things that makes this case so interesting is the age at which she had this experience.
Oh, really?
Just 4.5 years old.
4.5.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty young.
Okay, so who is this Susan Grau?
Well, today she's known as an intuitive medium author speaker,
Okay.
and she even has a doctorate in divinity with a focus on near-death experiences.
Oh, wow.
But back then, she was just a little girl living a pretty normal life in 1960s California.
Until she ended up in that freezer.
Exactly.
Right.
It all started as a dare from some neighborhood boys.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they challenged her to climb into an unplugged freezer in the garage,
Oh, boy.
promising her popsicles if she did.
Oh, man. I can already see where this is going.
Yeah, sadly, yes. She climbed in, they shut the door,
Oh.
and to make matters worse, the garage door accidentally slammed shut, too,
Oh, no.
trapping her inside.
Talk about a nightmare.
It gets even more intense. Susan is screaming, but no one can hear her over the noise of the neighborhood.
Oh, my gosh.
She's alone, terrified, and starting to realize that this is a life or death situation.
That must have been absolutely terrifying for a child that young. So how did she get out?
This is where it gets a little eerie. Her mother, somehow sensing something was wrong, suddenly hears a whisper saying, "Your baby is in the freezer."
Whoa. That's giving me chills.
Right, it seems like some kind of intuition or sixth sense kicked in.
Yeah.
So Susan's mom rushes out to the garage, throws open the freezer, and finds her daughter blue and lifeless.
So this was a true near-death experience. She actually died.
Oh, that's the thing with NDEs. It's hard to say for sure. But according to Susan, during those moments of unconsciousness, her consciousness left her body and she went on an incredible journey.
Okay, let's hear about this journey. What did she see?
She describes seeing 3 bright lights and hearing voices telling her to stop screaming.
Wow.
And then she found herself at the bottom of some broken stairs feeling like jello.
Okay.
And then suddenly she's transported to the edge of a well.
Well, that seems kind of random.
Not just any well. This one had an open ceiling with broken Greco-Roman pillars.
Interesting. Okay, now that's interesting. What happened at the well?
She describes looking down and seeing the swirling mass of energy, which she interpreted as the prayers and desires of people rising up.
Oh, wow.
People asking for healing, for material things, all sorts of wishes.
So she's witnessing the collective hopes and fears of humanity.
That's how she understood it.
Yeah.
And in this vision, she asks her angels, beings of light she felt were guiding her, if they answer all these prayers.
What do they say?
Their answer is pretty thought-provoking. No, Susie, sometimes what people desire most isn't good for them.
Makes you wonder about the nature of free will and whether we always know what's best for ourselves.
Exactly. It suggests that there might be a bigger picture, a higher wisdom that we don't always see.
Yeah. So what happened next on Susan's journey? Did she meet any of these people making wishes?
No, she moves on to another scene, this time a golden road leading to pyramids.
Okay.
She observes people pulling pavers from the base of the pyramids, each trying to build their own life path.
Interesting metaphor. We're all building our own paths, making choices that shape our lives.
Right, and in her vision, she sees that people's balance gets off as they struggle to stay on track. Then these beautiful lights, which she identifies as her own pavers, come in and rearrange things, saying, "We know what's right for you. You think you know what's right for you."
Wow. So even when we think we're in control, there might be forces guiding us, helping us stay on course.
That's one way to interpret it.
Yeah.
And it connects back to that earlier message about how sometimes what we desire most isn't actually good for us.
Right.
There's a suggestion of a higher wisdom at play.
It's a humbling thought. What else did Susan experience on this journey?
Well, next she finds herself in what she calls the room of knowledge, this swirling mass of history and information where she witnesses families planning their souls' journeys.
Whoa. So she's getting glimpses of reincarnation souls choosing their paths before birth.
That's how she later understood it.
Wow.
She even sees one soul choosing a super tough path, even though the angels advise against it, emphasizing that they have free will.
So even with guidance, we ultimately have the power to choose our own paths, no matter how challenging they may be.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not just passive passengers in life. We have agency and responsibility for the choices we make.
This is incredible. Okay, I need to know what happens next. Where does she go after the room of knowledge?
Buckle up, because it gets even more fantastical. She enters a place she calls the Room of Companions, a beautiful field of giant dandelions filled with animals.
Okay.
And here the angels are communicating through music.
Music.
Mm.
That's beautiful. It makes you wonder if that's why music has such a profound effect on us. Maybe it's a language that speaks to our souls.
It's a fascinating idea.
Hmm.
And then comes the most emotional part of Susan's journey. She describes seeing this radiant being on a mountain radiating pure love.
Wow.
She desperately wants to reach it but can't, and then this love washes over her, making her feel complete and perfect.
Wow. That sounds like a classic encounter with the divine, that feeling of unconditional love and acceptance that so many spiritual traditions talk about.
It's a powerful image. And in that moment, she also sees a shimmering pyramid with faces inside and senses that this is where spirits go who don't return to their bodies.
Okay, now that's a bit creepy. So does she go inside this pyramid?
No, she doesn't.
Yeah.
An angel tells her it's time to go back, that she'll have a hard life, but she'll help people.
So even at 4.5, she was given a glimpse of her life's purpose. That's incredible. What happened next?
She's led back through cleansing water back to her body. And at that exact moment, her mother finds her.
So she was literally brought back from the brink of death. That's amazing.
It really is. And from that point on, Susan's life was forever changed.
This is just the first part of her story, right? There's more to come.
Oh, absolutely. This near-death experience was just the beginning of Susan's journey into the world of the unseen.
I can't wait to hear more. But for now, we'll have to leave our listeners hanging. We'll be back soon with the next part of Susan Grau's extraordinary story. So make sure to tune in.
Hey, are you enjoying this podcast so far? If you are, would you kindly subscribe, like, and share our channel? We would appreciate your support to help us grow and thrive so that we may broadcast more extraordinary stories. Thank you for listening to Mystic Podcast Cruise. And now, back to our program.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're picking up where we left off with Susan Grau's incredible near-death experience.
It's truly remarkable how this event at such a young age shaped her entire life.
You mentioned that her life was forever changed. What happened after she came back?
Well, imagine being 4 years old and suddenly seeing spirits everywhere.
Whoa, that would be overwhelming for anyone, let alone a child.
Exactly, and to make things even more complicated, she was told by her mother not to talk about it.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine trying to process all of that alone?
That must have been incredibly difficult. It makes you wonder about all the other children who might have similar experiences, but are afraid to speak up.
It's a valid point. There's likely a lot more going on in the realm of childhood experiences than we often acknowledge.
So Susan was seeing spirits, but keeping it all to herself. Did this affect her childhood?
Absolutely. She described her childhood as abnormally normal.
Go.
She had all the typical experiences of growing up, but with this added layer of intuitive insights and encounters with the unseen.
It's almost like she was living in two worlds simultaneously.
That's a great way to put it. And despite being told not to talk about it, Susan couldn't ignore these abilities. She found herself naturally using her insights to help people even at a young age.
Can you give us an example?
Well, she describes having a deep understanding of grief and loss. She could sense when people were hurting and instinctively knew how to comfort them.
It's like her near-death experience gave her a unique perspective on life and death, allowing her to connect with others on a deeper level.
That's a beautiful way to frame it. And this empathy and intuitive understanding of others would eventually become the foundation of her work as an adult.
But she didn't become a medium right away, did she?
No, there was a whole journey that led her to embrace that path. It wasn't a straight line.
What were some of the obstacles she faced?
Well, for one, societal stigma. Even today, being a medium can be controversial. Imagine what it was like back then. She likely encountered skepticism, judgment, and maybe even fear from others.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to step into a role like that, especially when it goes against societal norms.
Absolutely. And remember, she had been told to keep her experiences quiet. That kind of conditioning can be powerful. It's understandable that she might have been hesitant to fully embrace her abilities.
So what was the turning point for her? What made her finally embrace her calling as a medium?
It was actually the passing of her grandmother.
The loss of someone close often brings about a profound shift in perspective.
Exactly. In Susan's case, her grandmother came to her after her passing. And the experience was so powerful that it pushed Susan to finally seek out more information about her abilities.
It's like her grandmother gave her permission, in a way, to step into her power.
That's a beautiful interpretation. And what's fascinating is that Susan didn't turn to spiritual circles or communities for answers.
Oh, really?
Instead, she did something very practical. She picked up the phone book, remember those,
Oh.
and looked up UCLA Medical Center.
She called a hospital.
Yep, and she told the man who answered the phone about her experiences about seeing spirits and having intuitive insights.
What was his reaction?
He told her she sounded like a medium.
Wow. So even from a medical perspective, her abilities were recognized.
It's interesting, isn't it? But even with that validation, Susan was still terrified. She hung up the phone and didn't pursue it further at that time.
It seems like she was still wrestling with the internal conflict of accepting her gift and the fear of judgment from others.
That's a common struggle for many people who have these kinds of abilities. It can take time to integrate these experiences into our understanding of ourselves and the world.
So if she didn't become a medium right away, what did she do?
Well, she eventually found a way to use her gifts in a way that felt safe and aligned with her values. She became a grief and addiction specialist.
That makes sense. She already had that deep understanding of grief and the ability to connect with people on a very emotional level.
And in her work, she found that she often had insights into her clients' lives that went beyond what they were consciously sharing. She would know things about their past, their struggles, even things they hadn't told anyone else.
That must have been both fascinating and challenging for both her and her clients.
I imagine it was. But over time, as she gained experience and confidence, she began to gradually embrace her mediumship more openly.
It sounds like it was a gradual process of self-discovery, finding a way to integrate her abilities into her life in a way that felt authentic.
Exactly. And eventually, she became the internationally recognized medium and spiritual teacher that she is today.
It's a beautiful example of someone turning a childhood trauma into a powerful gift that she uses to help others.
And it speaks to the transformative power of these experiences. They can shake us to our core, but they can also awaken us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe.
So it sounds like Susan's journey wasn't just about having a near-death experience. It was about coming to terms with that experience, facing societal fears, and ultimately finding her own unique path.
It's a reminder that we all have a unique journey to undertake. We might not all have near-death experiences, but we all face challenges and obstacles that shape who we become.
And sometimes the most unexpected experiences can lead us to our greatest gifts and purpose.
It's a beautiful message of hope and resilience, and I think there's still more to unpack from Susan's story.
Of course. We've covered her NDE and the early years of her journey, but what about her work as a medium? What has she learned about the afterlife, about the nature of consciousness from all her years of communicating with spirits?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned because we're just getting started.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring Susan Grau's incredible journey, from her near-death experience as a child to her eventual embrace of her calling as a medium.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating exploration of the interplay between personal experience, societal expectations, and the courage it takes to step into one's true purpose.
Absolutely. And now I'm really curious to dive into what Susan has learned from all those years of communicating with spirits. What insights has she gained about the afterlife, about consciousness, about the big mysteries that we all ponder?
Well, one of the most consistent themes in Susan's work is the idea that death is not an end but a transition.
Okay.
She describes the afterlife as a vibrant and dynamic realm where souls continue to learn, grow, and evolve.
So it's not just sitting on clouds playing harps.
Not quite. Susan emphasizes that our consciousness, our essence, continues on. We retain our personalities, our memories, and our capacity to love and connect.
That's a comforting thought for many people, I imagine. It's natural to fear the unknown, but her perspective suggests that there's a continuity of consciousness, that who we are doesn't just vanish.
Exactly. And she stresses that the afterlife isn't a static place. Souls continue to learn and grow just as we do here on Earth.
So what does that growth look like? Does she talk about specific lessons or challenges that souls face in the afterlife?
One key idea she highlights is that we review our lives and the impact we've had on others.
Oh, interesting.
It's not about judgment, she says, but about understanding the ripple effects of our choices and actions.
So it's like a cosmic debriefing, a chance to reflect on our journey and gain a broader perspective on the choices we made.
Yes, exactly. And this reflection process, according to Susan, helps souls to heal, to forgive themselves and others, and to gain a deeper understanding of their purpose.
It makes sense. We often talk about the importance of self-reflection and personal growth here in the physical world. It seems like that process continues in the afterlife, but perhaps with even greater clarity and insight.
That's a great observation, and it connects to another important theme in Susan's work, the idea that we're all interconnected both here and in the afterlife.
We hear a lot about interconnectedness these days, especially in spiritual circles. What does Susan specifically say about this?
Well, she emphasizes that our actions and intentions have a ripple effect not just on the people around us, but on a much grander scale. She describes a web of energy connecting all souls and how our thoughts and emotions can actually influence this web.
So it's not just about individual growth, but about contributing to a collective evolution of consciousness.
Exactly. Susan suggests that we all have a role to play in creating a more loving and harmonious world, both during our physical lives and beyond.
It's a powerful concept. It suggests that our lives have meaning beyond our individual experiences, that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
And it ties back to that message Susan received during her NDE, that she would have a hard life, but she would help people. It seems like she's taken that message to heart and made it her life's mission.
It's inspiring to see someone take such a challenging experience and turn it into a force for good. What else has Susan learned from her years as a medium? Does she offer any guidance on how we can connect with our own intuition with that sense of something greater than ourselves?
She actually emphasizes the importance of practices like meditation and mindfulness.
Oh, yeah.
She says that by quieting the mind and tuning inward, we can start to access that deeper wisdom and intuition that we all possess.
It's a reminder that we all have the potential to connect with that inner knowing, with that sense of the divine, regardless of whether we believe in an afterlife or not.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a really important point. Susan encourages people to question everything, to explore different perspectives, and to ultimately find their own truth. She doesn't claim to have all the answers, but rather offers her experiences as a catalyst for deeper reflection and self-discovery.
It's a refreshing approach. It's not about dogma or blind belief, but about empowering people to explore their own spirituality and connect with the mysteries of life in a way that resonates with them.
And ultimately, that's what the deep dive is all about, isn't it? Encouraging our listeners to think critically, to be curious, and to explore the vast landscape of human knowledge and experience.
Beautifully said. So as we wrap up our exploration of Susan Grau's incredible journey, what's the one takeaway you'd like our listeners to hold on to?
I think it's the message that even in the face of extraordinary experiences, even when confronted with the unknown, there's always an opportunity for growth, for meaning, and for connection. We're not alone in this vast universe, and our lives have a ripple effect that extends far beyond what we can see.
It's a beautiful and empowering message, and a great note to end on. Thank you so much for guiding us through this deep dive into Susan Grau's world.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Mystic Podcast Cruise. If you enjoyed today's story, give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who love uncovering life's mysteries. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Your support helps us continue bringing you captivating stories about the unknown, the mystical, and the extraordinary. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep cruising through the mysteries of life with us here on Mystic Podcast Cruise.